Hello, this video is really going to break pattern in what I'm going to say. So first off, I want to give a huge shout out for what are some of the most unsung heroes in this world. So who am I referring to? All those heritage centres, all those windmills, water mills, steam railways, vintage vehicle museums, anything like that. All those volunteers who may be just involved in distribution or collating and stapling monthly magazines, or working in the tea rooms, keeping things operational. They are dedicated people, often older, who have memories of how the world used to be, and in many ways keep it alive. As far as I know, the total mileage for the United Kingdom for preserved railway lines equates to something like 400 miles. You may want to go to one of these places. There's a lot that you can get out of it. So let me just explain why, and let me just explain how things work. Governments are corporations. Corporations work with something called human resources, and it works on a principle. So if I want to throw this stone over there, it's going to use a lot of effort and probably not very accurate. It's not efficient, it's not running like a business model. But if I'm to use a catapult, I'm creating a tension and a release, and I've got a far more accurate aim, and it's going to be far more efficient by adapting something actually very primitive. So something like with elasticity and a sort of Y-shaped tree branch. You've got a catapult, and you've got a way of projecting a stone a far greater distance than you can probably throw it. That is what I'm seeing happening in the UK. Again, it's perspectives, and I can understand why things are happening the way they are happening, but people don't realise they're being played. It's fear-based. All these demonstrations, all these protests and things, but regardless of what information you get from the internet on what you think may or may not have happened, answer me this question. When ever has any revolution not just replaced one corruption with another form of corruption? Take France. Is that some sort of world leader where everybody in that country is prosperous? The United States, Russia, you name it. Anywhere that has had a revolution or some sort of civil uprising which is generally quashed, if it isn't crushed, it results in a new form of corruption coming in its place. And the result is always much loss of lives with these things. If you look at the stories of the French Revolution, there's a prime example. Same with Russia under Stalin, all the things that happened there. You also get a situation which happened with the Spanish Civil War from the sort of communist side of things, where they've got rid of their sort of management of the navy. So that will be the captain, the navigator, the pilot, and so on. And so your warships are now inoperative because you don't have a management level. You have the equivalent of collective farming. They're always a disaster. So what is going on in the UK? Just look at the real picture here. So many people are getting played by this pendulum swing that follows the same pattern with a catapult, because there is tension. When you are projecting a stone, if you're throwing it in a certain direction. But with a catapult, you're actually going in the other direction and creating a tension and then a release. That is what is going on, not just in the UK, but probably every country in Europe and United States as well. Humanity is a human resource that is being played, because it is the human resource to enact these things, which is further reinforced, of course, with paid operatives, the controlled opposition to ignite things. But a revolution, just consider, what is a revolution? We've only got to look at a clock. From 12 o'clock midnight to 12 o'clock midnight, it's 2 revolutions, obviously, but it comes back to where it started. So with a revolution, nothing actually changes. It goes full circle. You'll see this with a car engine, the way they're described at so many revolutions per minute. It's a complete turning, but it comes back to where it started. So whilst there is this emotional pull and fear, it comes with 2 very conflicting stories. One, you'll get a story of, oh, this is not being reported in the mainstream media. But funny how it filters through the internet. But there's also a narrative that things are censored on the internet. So why are some of these things getting through? It's pulling on heartstrings. It's causing attention. So what I'm going to suggest here, instead of going on one of these protests, where, don't forget, it's all about data collection, and it's not all by AI. There will be operatives, there will be the likes of CIA putting faces to names, checking comments on social media. We had a theme of the button, pressing the red button, and nuclear wars and such like. Well, the season of the button is now. It's a keyboard. And you think the events of 2020 were sort of like a one-off thing. But this information, it's not on the mainstream media, but it's going through the social media and is spread via us like a virus. So my recommendation would be, instead of going on one of these protests, why don't you do something constructive and beneficial? Why don't you go to one of these museums, these heritage centres, working museums? Why don't you get involved and become a volunteer instead of revolting? That's what it is. It's just revolting. Why not become a volunteer? Means one. So you're putting your energy in one, and there's tiers. So if we take steam railways, you'll have track laying gangs where they're relaying track on an old track bed where there may not have been a train pass through that piece of land for maybe 60 years or more now. And it has to conform to a standard and things. Not only will you be investing money in a great day out for not just yourself but your family, you may actually want to get involved. Because one of the big problems in this reality is the devil makes work for idle hands, and the idle hands are normally tap, tap, tap on a cell phone, giving their opinions on things, adding comments. Well, those comments are being collated. Don't forget that. They're all traps. But if you get involved with these museums and things, there's a good potential you're going to learn skills. You're going to see how things used to be done, traditional ways of doing things. You're going to be picking up skills. You'll have a great day out for the family. It's something that involves creativity and fun. Just imagine where this could go. No man is an island. No one person can recreate, say, we use the analogy of a railway line. You need lots of human input, lots of human resources to bring this all together. It becomes a kind of community. You have that folk soul that is rekindled. Rather than being ignited by negative emotional fear of, I'm protecting my children. Yes, these things go on. I don't deny that. But it's funny how the way it filters through, so people get to hear about it and then get stirred up by these things. But your energy is being played. The way things are going in the UK, it's that tension of that elasticity that is being played out at the moment. It is done to project humanity in a certain direction. And most are, unfortunately, going to fall for it. I can understand the reasons why. But it comes down to looking at the bigger picture, seeing a very different perspective on things, and then asking yourself the question, what difference am I really going to make? If you think about how many people go to London on these marches, the logistics of it all, you're giving up your time, you've got the travelling expenses, you've got your food expenses. Are you taking your whole family? Are you taking young children along to these things? Wouldn't it be better to go to a heritage centre or a canal, teaching your children and showing them what is your heritage, the way things used to be, the skills that we're now missing in this world. This is where the role of the masculine has been most hard hit. Where are these apprenticeships today? Where can you learn these skills? If we had a collapse of civilization, in time it would be seen that there were some that were like gods. They still have knowledge of the motor car and such like, but without the infrastructure for something as simple as spark plugs for the engine, that motor car will reach a point where it becomes obsolete. It's useless because you can't drive it anywhere. That's assuming there is even roads to drive them on, of course. So have a pause and have a think about these things. Wouldn't it be better to take your family for a great day out, to get involved with something, maybe even become a volunteer? You may make new friends through that. You'll be potentially learning skills. Okay, something like track laying might not seem a very practical skill for everyday life, but there are elements in all these things. It also recreates a story about these fallen angels that came down and gave skills to humanity in metallurgy and such like. Well, we can borrow from that as well, because without keeping these skills alive and passing them on from generation to generation, they will die out. Then what are we left with? Think about all that money that is potentially wasted on one-offs going to protests here, there or wherever. And are all of those genuine anyway? Wouldn't it be better to put that money, that financial resource, into something that is going to benefit far more people as a collective? And it's not just in the UK. There are all kinds of museums in every Western nation in Europe and probably beyond that, and certainly in the United States. But I'm using the UK as an example because it is small. So more than likely, within a sort of 20, 30-mile radius of where you actually live, you will find one of these locations where you could get involved. If you don't have transport, it may be that somebody lives nearby and would be able to take you there. There's an awful lot to be gained from this. As a volunteer at one of these places, just consider the pleasure that you're giving other people by taking part in this. And if you're really open with the heart, how rewarding that becomes. Okay, a lot of places you're not going to get paid, and also keep in mind that they are all registered charities. But it doesn't mean you can't work with the system rather than going against the system and doing something far more creative, far more beneficial. There is further to this. If you become a volunteer, you all have probably encountered this scenario where laying on your doormat is this card with attempted delivery of a parcel, something you may have ordered from Amazon or off of eBay. Now you've got all the hassle of ringing somewhere up. Well, there's something that can be recreated that is going to generate income for these railway centres and such like. Why not speak to these various museums and say, here's an idea, why don't you become like a parcels office with a nominal £1 handling charge for these parcels? Because it's recreating something that certainly happened with railways and bus companies where they had these parcel services. So this whole idea of couriers and in private hands is not actually anything new. But think of the further benefit to this. If you've got a courier who's got 70 parcels that has got to go to 70 different locations, that driver has got to find somewhere to park or block the road and put the four-way flashers on while they're trying to do this delivery. Wouldn't it be easier and far more efficient to have all of those 70 parcels just to go to one address where they are going to be safe? Do you really have to have these things instantly? Isn't there some sort of excitement in the expectation of, I've ordered this book I really wanted, but I'm not going to this place till Friday, but I'm really excited about it? Doesn't that give you a sort of uplifting feeling in the anticipation? Because once you've read the book, is that excitement still there? But what about if you can channel that excitement into a living, working museum as a volunteer, taking part in something, getting something out of it, giving pleasure to a potential, I don't know how many people visit these places. This is not something that is impossible. This is something that has been done many, many times. You've only got to look at the history of some of these older, now long established preserved steam railways, something like the Bluebell Railway or I think it's the Tallinn Railway in Wales with narrow gauge steam. They've been about for a long time, and they generally start with one or two people having this dream that seems impossible, to recreate something that once was and is now a thriving operation that has attracted more and more volunteers, that is providing pleasure to a huge number of people that make the effort to go to these places. So a big shout out to all those volunteers, and really do weigh up and consider what is going to benefit you most. Going on a protest or taking your family on a day out, potentially inspiring your children into something that they may not have even thought about having an interest in. It would also get them off those computer screens as well. It will show them something different. It will show them a different world, a world the way things used to be, where we did have the skills, we did have the facilities for apprenticeships. From this, a lot of that can come back. It could even be the tea room. It could be homemade cakes. You could learn how to cook, how to prepare food, all these kind of things. This is just a very brief overview. I can't go into all the ins and outs and the specifics. And of course there are sometimes conflicts within these organisations and they break away, but that's always going to happen with any type of community where there are too many people together. But for the majority, the volunteers have a clear focus of what they want to achieve. They give their time up freely and they put it into something creative. So please consider this. And next time you see something on social media that you don't agree with and you're getting all fired up, you're being triggered. There's a tension being caused. There's that elastic band on that catapult. Are you going to be that stone that is, by tacit agreement, is being projected in a completely opposite direction? You can see this with politics between Reds, left wing and right wing, and red and blue and so on. Is there really any change that benefits the majority of humanity, or is it just another corrupt scheme where the few at the top benefit in what is basically a pyramid system? I'll leave that to you, for you to ponder, but the key thing is to ask yourself these questions. If you feel triggered by anything I've said, good, because that trigger is a sensation from the body saying to you, we have a problem inside here, we need to face ourselves. Start looking at doing things that are constructive and creative rather than trying to fight fire with fire. You will get nowhere. All you will take part in is a complete revolution. Things will come back full circle and nothing actually changes. If anything, things will be far worse off. You've only got to look at history and the overwhelming pattern to what happens with revolutions. Who actually benefits from these things? But you have a huge potential where if you can ignite something in yourself, a chance to learn new skills, a chance to take part and recreate something that is of benefit to far more, not something that is self-serving, working for a common good as part of a community. So I hope I've made a case. If it sounds like a bit of a rant, it's because I feel passionate about this. So we'll leave that there and just check out local museums and things. Have a look. Find something that interests you or something you don't know anything about. At least go along and find out for yourself. You may gain some useful skills in time out of it. Carpentry, steaming wood to create arches, which has enormous practical benefits. Learning how to print by traditional methods. There's so many different aspects to this that this would be a very long video if I went into all the different things. But hopefully that gives you a flavour. Hopefully that has inspired you in some way to do something different, to break pattern, and not take those predictable routes where you're actually being played, and potentially could even get yourself arrested and fined. Just think about that as well.